Some 200 Amazon employees tell the New York Times they had to face unfair working conditions during the pandemic, a time when the online retail giant had record profits. In an article out this morning, those current and former workers claim Amazon relied too much on computerized human resources and had a mindset that encouraged turnover in its warehouses. We asked Amazon for a response, but have not heard back.
According to the article, Amazon acknowledged some issues to the New York Times with inadvertent firings, loss of benefits, job abandonment notices, and leaves. Amazon argues those problems and some others chronicled in this article were outliers. The company has given raises to its workers and introduced new safety initiatives and diversity plans. We have Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times correspondent Jodi Kantor, who's been working on this story for nearly a year. She's also a CBS News contributor. This is the first interview, Jodi, that you're doing about this article, which just was posted. Jodi, I mean, throughout this pandemic year, we've been hearing about all these issues at Amazon. And then in the article, you talk about how the turnover is so high. They basically replace the equivalent of their entire workforce every 8 months. What's going on there?
It all goes back to the original vision that Jeff Bezos had for this company. And we quoted actually some brave former executives who went on the record with us to describe his philosophy and express their concerns about how it's playing out. He wanted quick turnover because he wanted people when they were fresh and new. He felt that to paraphrase him, he almost felt that human beings were inherently lazy. And so he wanted to keep people moving through his system and also intentionally limited upward mobility in the warehouses. It's very hard to start at the first level at Amazon and then progress up very high.
But he may not have expected that he'd end up having as many employees as Amazon now does.
Well, part of the issue is scale. It's now this gigantic company. And I think the question of the investigation in many ways is how come Amazon can be so precise with packages and yet treat people so differently? And is this what powered Amazon's success? Is this their secret? Does it work really well? Or is it actually an impediment to the company's survival? Some of those executives are actually worried that Amazon could run out of workers because they are burning through workers so quickly.
So they get to the point where everyone in America available to work for Amazon has already done so, and they're looking for a second re-up. A part of what the article lays bare and makes very clear is how well Amazon tracks its own employees. Not only the packages, but it tracks things like time off task. What does that kind of tracking do to the culture at Amazon?
So it is true that in most of these jobs in the warehouse, you are tracked every single second. When you pause, a computer is noting that. It's almost like an attendance system within an attendance system. Now, you may have an excused reason for pausing, but you have to go to your manager and ask them to code that in. We write about a woman named Diana Santos, who was an excellent performer. She had lots of praise. She had one really bad day in which a series of things, some of which were beyond her control, went wrong. She was fired for one bad day. After we went back to Amazon with that story and asked them many times about it, they did say they are going to change that policy.
What does that do to the morale of the workforce?
Well, there's a lot of frustration at Amazon, as you know, and I think when you meet the characters in this story, they help explain it. Some of them feel that, and this is especially true, I think, of workers of color, Black workers who were fired at JFK, at least back in 2019, at a much higher rate, nearly 50% higher than white employees, felt like, I give this company my best effort and there's no reward for me, even if I excel on this productivity software, even if I work really fast, there is no path to progress. JFK to me, in one of the most successful organizations of our era.
And that's the Staten Island facility where there were protests during the pandemic.
Yeah, this is also a narrative about characters wrestling with the pandemic year in this particular place called JFK 8. JFK 8 got us a lot of our packages when we were homebound. I think we all relied on these workers, even if we didn't know what JFK 8, which is the only fulfillment center in New York City, really was.
It's also heartbreaking in the piece learning about employees who are trying to take leave and thought they were above board with the company and then are discharged nonetheless. How does that happen?
This is one of the most striking findings. People were mistakenly fired just for trying to take leaves. And, the story is about what happens when you have this giant system that's very highly automated. There's a big question about whether Amazon has invested enough in these systems. And people would get these, even just for applying for a leave sometimes. You could get a job abandonment notice as if you had done something wrong. And also, one of the most poignant stories in the article is about a woman named Ann Castillo. Her husband was a very long time, very loyal, well-liked Amazon employee. He got very sick with coronavirus. He suffered brain damage. His condition is very serious. And yet she had these questions about, why is the company, do they even know what is happening to my husband? And it led her to ask, are their workers truly replaceable to them?
It's an unfortunate possible reality, and you're holding Amazon accountable in your reporting. I think the question now is whether customers will in some way hold Amazon accountable. They are so big and so good at what they do, they're almost unavoidable in the marketplace. Jodi Kantor, thank you very much. We appreciate it.